Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me. I am still trying to figure out how StreamYard works, and I'll try to do more of those live shows. I wanted to touch upon a new topic here that hasn't been covered much, I would say, in details. That's the Greenland. Greenland, the declaration of Trump saying that basically he wants to was not very precise. They asked him, "Are you interested in getting Greenland? Would you use force, coercion?" And he said yes. And I think those are messages that we need to start to take seriously. This is not the bluff of Trump. This is a topic that Trump has been talking about on this last term, and it's coming back. And when you look at history, when it comes to Greenland, this is not the first time that actually the US is trying to buy Greenland. It has been over 100 years, 150 years even, that the US has been trying to buy Greenland. Which, by the way, when you look at in the past, I think the Virgin Islands were purchased from Denmark by the US. So that would not be the first time. And when you look at the whole history of the US, a lot was done by acquisitions or land grab. You see a lot of states in the US actually used to belong to Mexico. Alaska used to belong to Russia. Russia sold it to the US. Louisiana was sold by France to the US. So there's, and now we have Greenland. What Trump is saying is that this is for national security, but it's more than that. I think there's what we call the Arctic Council, and you have a few countries there that are present in this council. You have Russia, all the countries that are actually touching the Arctic. So that would give more power to the US. And in addition to that, there's this route, which is extremely important, strategic route, is the Arctic route, which is so important, especially for Russia. This gives an alternative of route, which can be much cheaper and faster, especially for China. That's a good alternative, and this is why Russia has been massively investing to ports along this route. Now, how could this happen? There's a very strong possibility that this could happen. You see, there's a large majority of people in Greenland that are interested into independence. So there's this movement, pro-independence movement from natives that are actually slowly, they've actually declared that over the long term, they want to have independence. And this could go much faster. So the day that they declare independence, they could be free to say, well, we could join you, the Union, the USA. There's a possibility. I think we should not underestimate. Everything has a price. The advantage here is that Greenland has a population of 50,000 inhabitants. So you could imagine if you were from that country, from that place, you'd be offered $100,000 US. Would you take it or not? Or even $1 million. $1 million times 50,000 people, that's not much. Especially when you think that this is the largest island on Earth. It's massive. It's a massive territory. And but what I'd like to touch upon is what the US has been doing over the years when it comes to Greenland, and what we do with especially when we do it with the Brian Belletti on the new Atlas, we do a lot of what is related to meddling. Meddling, it's all those NGOs, all those CIA linked entities that actually they buy allegiance, they buy influence, and they manipulate people. It depends on which country. The strategy can be different. So when it comes to Greenland, Greenland still belongs to Denmark. Denmark is in the EU, and it is also in NATO. So the US is threatening a NATO ally to take over Greenland. That's extremely aggressive. So the US would not go with the National Endowment for Democracy, which is a rebranded name for the CIA, to get to do regime change or to influence too much what is happening in Greenland. The way they do it is much more subtle, is through NGOs, climate activists, and also there's USAID. So USAID has been putting a lot of money into the communities. Now, when you look at the whole economy of Greenland, it's there isn't much. There's a fishery. It's very old economy, but they're not tapping into the resources. There are trillions of dollars when it comes to resources. But still, you have Denmark, which is giving Greenland $500 million a year of subventions. So this is costing a lot of money to Greenland, to Denmark, which is not a very rich country, which we know $500 million a year, it's a lot of money. So you would expect why Greenland would not be self-sufficient when you have so many natural resources. That's a big question, right? It's very simple. You have all those Western NGOs, climate activists, animal protection. You have plenty of those NGOs. They are massively into Greenland to make sure that Greenland doesn't develop and doesn't become self-sufficient. But those NGOs are controlled, funded by the West, and especially the US. And they use those NGOs also in the global South just to contain them. They don't want development in the global South, and this is a good, way to better control. When it comes to Greenland, if they had the money of all those resources, they would not be actually seeking to maybe accepting any conditions from the US. Now Greenland is extremely poor. It's living out of welfare given by Denmark. So if tomorrow they were independent, maybe they would take an offer from the US because they don't have access to the natural resources. So now I'd like to touch upon, let me check. I'm going to try to use, I'm new to this, so bear with me. How do I share Windows? Okay, I'm going to share screen. Now, that's an interesting one. See this? The US provides 4.5 million for Greenlandic teacher training. So this is Danish currency. I think it's crowns. I'm not sure, but that is actually $450,000 for 1 year for teacher training. But keep in mind, this is like 50,000 people teacher training. So basically, they're training all the teachers. But why would you actually pour into this money into teacher training? It's very simple. You actually control the teachers, and then the message would actually go all the way to the kids. So they're grooming a whole generation into buying into how the US is good and how actually they should fight for independence. Because keep in mind that, who plants the idea? That's my question. Maybe they do want independence. It's understandable. But now when you actually have a foreign country like the US funding this, when you look at the US actually has problems of education. There's so many problems, but why would you allocate that money? It's very simple. This is manipulation. This is a way they're planting the seeds. So in any case, pushing for independence, that's one side. But if one day Greenland is independent, that they might send some message attractive to the youth. So when you look at the youth in Greenland, it would be so attractive to join the US. First of all, well, I think Trump would put on the table a lot of money. That's one thing. So they get cash. And then they would buy into the US dream. They've been brainwashed through Netflix, Hollywood. They'd get a green card. And a lot of people are not necessarily attached to the where they live, especially when you're young, you want to travel the world. You get the cash, you get the green card, and then you get to travel. So this is an example. This is an example of the money that actually they would be getting, and this is only the tip of the iceberg. Sorry for the the iceberg thing, but I'm going to show you more about this. Right now, this is another one. So the work I'm doing here, I'm showing you a few pages, but this is really important. Whenever you actually look at a country's sovereignty, it's important to see, well, what is the foreign meddling and the money. So here you have the United States provides $12 million in additional funding to respond to the devastating earthquake. Oh my God, this is not the right one. It's the same figure, but it's not the right one. I would need to get back to you when it comes to, this is the wrong page. Very, very sorry about this. But actually the figure is the same. It's the same. They provided $12 million to Greenland through USAID, through various projects. Now I'm going to show you, there's a picture. Bear with me, this is new for me, so I'll get better. Who do we have here? Who do we have? Do you know who's that person? This is USAID Samantha Power. So Samantha Power, you see, she's greeting the Prime Minister of Greenland here. And you remember, you'd actually see exactly the same picture between Samantha Power of USAID and Zelensky. So now you see, this is a region that actually belongs to Denmark, and actually the US is meddling directly there and is pouring money into that independent region to make it shift towards independence. And they're planting the seeds for the day that it will be independent, just to maybe to join the union. And if they don't want to join, but you see, Trump said clearly that we might use coercion and do it by force. So you see the whole plan. They did all the plan with the NGOs to contain the development, just make sure that Greenland doesn't have access to their resources, because the NGOs, Western US-controlled NGOs, are blocking everything. And guess what? If Greenland one day gets to independence and joins the US, guess what? All those restrictions would be lifted, and the US would have access to trillions of dollars of reserves. So that for me was important for just to do this, because I haven't seen many people touching upon this topic, and I think this is extremely important. It is not this time. I think we need to take Trump seriously. I know he does a lot of bluff. There's a lot of threats and so on. But in this case, I would say this is serious. So we should not underestimate his resolve. And this is a plan that has been going on for a long time. Just check. You can go into Wikipedia. It's not always the best source, but it tells you through time. It's been since the 1850s. The US has been trying to purchase Greenland because it's extremely strategic. And they know there are massive resources. And imagine if, let's say, if the US was able to buy Greenland for, let's say, $50 billion, well, guess what? There are trillions of dollars of natural resources. And, in terms of land mass, this is massive, and it's extremely strategic when it comes to trade routes. So what I would do here is that I'll start to take some questions. This is not supposed to be a long show. I just wanted to touch base, and this is I enjoy to do this, but it's also a practice. I need to practice more by doing those shows. I want to remind you that this channel is demonetized. So what happens is that the algorithm doesn't work in my favor. So it's pretty much blocked. I don't know how much I can grow the channel, but I think it's always good for me to connect with you guys. And I feel I'm getting more attentions because I have a larger account, Twitter account. So if you want to shoot any questions about Greenland, but I think it's and I hope you do understand what is behind this, the implications, and also why Trump is doing this. And actually, he's planting the seeds too. It's a bit provoking. It seems like trolling when it comes to Canada, is trolling a bit Trudeau, but this is how it starts. And you see the meddling, the U.S. meddling with Canada used to start like very early on. The intention when it came to Canada, it was hundreds of years ago, where they started to integrate. How do you do? How do you integrate two countries? How you actually end up like the EU? You see, the project, the EU. If you were to tell people, well, 50 years ago, well, one day it's going to be a single entity, and we are going to erase borders and so on, people would have said, no, it won't happen. Well, the EU, that's the way it happened. And the EU was a CIA project. Actually, was even earlier. Well, since we're there, I might as well just explain that, because it's extremely important. Once you understand the way it works and how those are very long-term plan, you will understand that what Trump is doing is planting the seeds, but this is an ongoing project it's about, erasing, destroying nation state and make a new world order, without borders. You destroy nation state, deconstruct human being, societal, engineering. So the EU started actually during Hitler. His name was Walter Hallstein, and he's supposed to be the founder of the EU. Hitler had already this project of the EU, how you destroy nation state, how you control this whole entity, and this was taken over by the US, and they put in charge alongside Walter Hallstein, who became the first president of the EU. There was Jean Monnet, and Jean Monnet was a French person. I think he was a banker. He was based in the US, and he was on the payroll of the CIA. And this is how the EU started. And the ultimate goal was to destroy nation state, destroy the borders, and basically having this entity has a single market for the US, adopt a single currency, and but there was just to do a single market and the complete vassalization of Europe. And you see now, de facto, European states are de facto attached to NATO. So there's no more difference. But if even a decade ago, it would be unthinkable. You had the choice. Now it's de facto, you become a vassal state. And how do they do that? Actually, it's interesting. It's the same as the carrots that the US has been buying countries. Well, the same. The EU, actually, they kind of buy countries. How do they do that? The new countries that join the EU, they tend to be poorer than the countries that are already in the West. Let's say there's an expansion towards Eastern countries, they get bonus, they get freebies. Those are net recipients of EU funds, and who's paying? It's the West. And this is a transfer of wealth. So if you are a country that is not yet in the EU, let's say Georgia, well, you know that you are going to have a free lunch for the next 10 to 20 years, massive amount of money being poured into your country. And this is bribery. It's nothing else than bribery. So basically the country is getting money, but at the same time, you politicians are getting money. And so there's a wealth transfer from rich countries to poorer countries. But this is not, how does it benefit French people? How does it benefit German people? It doesn't. It's benefiting those big global corporations. And basically, ultimately, so those are new captive markets in Eastern Europe. And at the same time, it's a good way just to transfer production to cheaper places. So this way, people get poorer, you get more competitive. But this is all a project that is actually working in favor of the globalist elites and those multinational corporations. Let me check. I did send an invitation to Brian. Brian cannot join, but maybe he's listening to us now. But What I will try to do when I do those live shows, I will try to send invitation to a few of my friends, whoever wants to join in, just something really casual, because of course it's easier to have people I can talk to, because it's well, I talk to you guys, of course, but it's always hard just to talk in front of a computer, and it's hard. You don't have dead times, so basically, let me check if there's any questions. How much will Panama cost? Yeah, well, this is you see, Trump actually mentioned also Panama, that they want to get back Panama. The excuse, what Trump said, but this is Trump. Sometimes there's some kind of creative excuses, but he says that that Panama is charging too much for the U.S. vessels. But by the way, there's another project which actually will compete over time with the Panama Canal. That is there's a project of canal that would be done by China, and I think it's in Nicaragua. I need to double check, but this would be another trading route that would be possible, because it seems like the Panama Canal is a kind of saturated. There are a few reasons that makes Panama Canal not that efficient, and maybe the shipping, actually some of those boats are just too massive just to cross the canal. So let's see what kind of other questions there are. Somebody said, I live in Nuke, so drop the arrogance. I'm just stating a few facts, but I'm glad. Why don't you actually ask more questions? I'd be glad. There's somebody that is from Denmark. What I say just right there is that it's simple fact. What did I say wrong? Majority of people in Greenland are seeking independence. There's massive money that the EU country is getting from USAID. So what I'm stating is that once you get that money is to buy influence. When you buy influence, then if you really mean about getting sovereignty and having self-determination, well, that money is actually going against this self-determination, because ultimately what I would love for people in Greenland is to take their own decisions. But once there is foreign meddling and you getting that money, you're not a sovereign state, you're not a sovereign nation, because you're getting that money. That's my point. After, well, guess what? That's fine. But it's interesting the way it's looking at the Greenland. Extremely interesting. You see, if Greenland was, let's say, to seek independence, and then it would want to join the US, how different is that from Donbass, that actually did a referendum to be independent, and then it got the recognition from Russia, and then it asked Russia if it could join Russia? That would be exactly the same. But the difference when it comes to Greenland is the money and the interference. Greenland is accepting that money that is coming from the US and all the interference of NGOs. Now, Greenland, you want to keep it untouched. You have this massive land. You want to keep it green, natural, and so on. Animal protections, I know the whole discourse. But those are foreign NGOs. Do you think they're working in your favor? They're planting the seeds there, and that's foreign interference. I'm against that. I'm stating the facts. Then ultimately, it's up to people in Greenland. Who am I to say this? But I'm just stating facts. If you say that money doesn't influence, well, then you're not being honest. But anyway, I'm from Denmark, Angelo. All right. It would be interesting. People from Denmark. This is debatable. We can debate. Ultimately, what makes Greenland a colony or not? Well, people living in Greenland, those are natives. I think they are the Inuits. In reality, it's a colony. Let's call it what it is. It's a colony. I think Denmark gave them some room for independence. I think there's a name for that. It's and it's kind of autonomous region. Pretty much, they can even when it comes to trade and natural resources, they actually manage their own place. But with the exception that they need subventions every year because it's not self-sufficient. They're getting $500 million per year from Denmark, and because there's those NGOs that are actually blocking development. Then we can debate, do you agree with the green agenda and so on? Well, that's foreign interference. If I'd be fine if as long as people in Greenland, it should be organic. The decisions you make when it comes to development should be organic. The same as African. So when those NGOs are going to Africa and they say, oh, you need to be careful. Don't produce electricity with coal and so on. Well, guess what? They don't have roads. They don't have electricity. So you from the West, you're coming all the way. You have all the commodities. You've been plundering the global South. And you're going to an African and saying, well, no, we don't want you to build a power station or, have nuclear power and so on. Well, how much hypocrisy is behind that? And keep in mind that all those NGOs, climate change, activists, or I should call them cult or sects, they're very selfish and they're working for globalist elites that want to contain ultimately the South. If they really cared about the South, they would develop the South, and there are ways that are sustainable. But it's a foundation. You need foundation. If you don't have energy and electricity, there's absolutely no way you can develop. And if you don't have basic infrastructure, you cannot develop. So this is why the West has been containing the global South through the debt trap, through creating chaos and containing them through environmental policies. Who else? Memovox, thank you for your inputs. Memovox is saying it's in the constitution of Greenland that they can leave anytime they wish. It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true, and I think it's very brave from Denmark Denmark hasn't taken the position of being extremely aggressive, but at the same time, Greenland is a small place. It's a 5-6 million people. Can Denmark really afford to keep on paying for a land like this? It doesn't have the aspiration of being imperialistic. It's not similar to, it's not the same as the US. So that is pretty much about Greenland. Feel free to ask questions. Rolf Steiner is saying 56,000 people. I don't know, I checked so much, I'm saying 45, 50, 55,000, but roughly. But you can imagine when you have tens of millions of dollars being poured by those NGOs, USA idea, per capita, how much does it make? It's a lot of money. That is absolutely a lot of money. Anyway, let me check if there are other questions. Otherwise, I will be leaving soon. So if you can share, if you want to help the show, just share, like, I don't know what people say, but like and share. I hope, give me some feedback. For me, it's important to know that I'm bringing a contribution. When it comes to my opinions, it's very simple. It's I touch upon whatever is related to foreign meddling. I am for self-determination of people, but I need to point out the foreign interference. That's all I'm doing. So when I touch upon Greenland, you can be from Greenland and be upset about what I say, but I'm just stating that there's foreign interference, and very often you need to look at intentions. You might have a master that is Denmark. I don't know the relationship you've had with Denmark, but on the other side, well, if you're getting on the U.S. hand, you need to look at what the U.S. did to those places it controlled. Just look at Hawaii. It's not the first time that the U.S. does acquisitions, so you need to look at Do they really care about people in Greenland? And ultimately, sorry, somebody is calling me an anti-Semite. I love this. I must be doing something right. So I think actually right now, if you are being called an anti-Semite, just take it as a compliment. I say, well, thank you. I must be doing something right. I think somebody said that being an anti-Semite used to be someone that didn't like the Jews. Now, being an anti-Semite is someone that the Jews don't like. But we know it's not about Jews; it's about Zionists. By the way, which I couldn't care less, about religions and all this BS. I don't have time for that. It's a luxury I don't have and no interest. But I despise genocides. I despise seeing baby being killed and this whole ideology, supremacist ideology. So Zionism is as despicable as Nazis. Anyway, whereas Greenland is an autonomous territory with its own parliament and government. Absolutely. But you see, it's very interesting. You have such a small place. So let's say there's 50,000 people living in Greenland. How many are at the age of voting? And actually, how many votes? So let's say you have, out of 50,000 people, you have, let's say, 40,000 that actually at the age of voting. When you look at pretty much the rate of, out of that, probably 50% of people vote. So out of maybe 20,000 people vote there in Greenland, go to, participate in the electoral process. And then having a majority, it's like 10,000 people. So you could buy votes there. I mean, imagine how much money can actually influence. We've seen, in the US, they pay billions of dollars for the elections, but a few $1 million, you can pretty much shift the whole election in Greenland. The wish to become part of the American world is dwindling fast. Absolutely. You see, I actually learned English. Wow, that's 40 years ago. I went to the US 35 years ago to learn English. And I had the American dream. I was, was fascinated. But I think this has changed, sadly. It's no more the dream. It's no more the favorite destination. I think people become more critical. There's two things. When it comes to America, it's what it represents in the mind of people. And then there's what it is. The idea of America is nice, because it's an idea of freedom. But the reality is it's very different. It is tough. And this is why a lot of people, all those illegal immigrants coming from South America, they go to the US and they realize that their life is going to be about being slave labor, being on a survival mode, and they don't have the dignity they should have as a human being. Dignity is about really being able to put food on the table, having healthcare, health access, being able to put your kids to school. I mean, this is dignity, and life is tough. But this is the whole game. Once you put people in a survival mode, you control them better. And in addition to that, you do social engineering, LGBT, you teach people how religion is bad, your beliefs are bad, and so on. And you isolate the individual, and because they want to turn them into slave labor and zombies, just consumers. Who do we have there? Slightly off the topic, however, how is Trump regime using military force to take in Greenland even possible, especially when the military forces have to detour Canada? I think I would not underestimate. This will not happen overnight, but there are things. What was unthinkable yesterday is a reality today. I will give the single example of Israel. Did you ever think that we would see a genocide happening live on TV baby being killed every day, and the collective West would stay silent and keep on selling weapons to Israel, and that you would have the international court that would judge Netanyahu, and you'd have countries in the collective West saying, well, we actually will not follow the decisions of the courts. That was unthinkable. Well, guess what? If the conditions are there, I wouldn't be surprised that Trump would do it. But I would say there's a intermediary steps that the US would need, is that Greenland declares independence. So once Greenland is independent, then it has no ties to Denmark, and because Denmark is a US ally, and that would mean actually a NATO ally fighting against a NATO ally. So I would say there's a preconditions. Greenland needs to first declare independence, and then, so it's a matter of time. But I think it's really, we need to take this seriously. American exceptionalism as a genocidal component based on religion, absolutely. I think the whole culture, when you look at the whole culture, was about exporting ideology, supremacy, build this new world. And actually, it's very similar to Zionism. The Zionism is about, taking a land, and whoever is on that land, just making sure that you get rid of them, and this idea of expansion. You need to expand your values, your ideology, and so on. While other cultures don't have this idea of expansion. Ralph Steiner, God bless America, New World, and gave us the USA and the New World from the Indian savages. I don't know what you mean, but all right. Small countries can have sovereignty without big military spending. Absolutely. Actually, it's interesting. I've been studying the defense spending per capita in many countries, and you realize that what the US has been doing to the global South, and especially in Africa, that the GDP, the spending the spending per GDP is less than 1% in most African countries, and one of the very few countries that has a high spending per capita is Algeria, which is actually not going along the globalist agenda. So basically, because they have very low budget. Of course, they're poor, but in addition to that, they are very low budget in terms of defense. For the West, it's very easy to topple government. So, and those government in Africa, they get a loan from the IMF and the World Bank with preconditions. Some of the preconditions can be like, you need to accept like NGOs to meddle into your country and actually to influence your democratic process. You need to join the international courts, which are controlled by the West. That's very important. Why do you think they join those courts? Because otherwise they wouldn't get the loans from the IMF and the World Bank. And in addition to that, they need to have extremely low defense spending. And if you don't have the ability to have those defense spending, well, your sovereignty is being attacked. And that's the whole debt trap idea. You starve them. When they need money, they say, well, IMF is going to give you money, but it's going to be high rates and conditions that are really strict. And you need actually to give up part of your sovereignty, if not all your sovereignty. I think we could go on and on. Just shoot me questions. I'm fine if you shoot questions. We're not too many. I'm actually just reading the questions that are from YouTube. I don't know how to read the questions from Twitter. Just bear with me. I'm new to this. I'm just trying to see how it works. So anyway, I think we'll stop it here. It's already 40 minutes actually, and I'm glad I can see like all together 900 people were live. So we are here now I am in Hong Kong. This is 9:20. I just want to say, well, thank you for your support. Really, I'm glad that people are interested about what is going on in the world. And again, what I like to tell people is really, if you want to empower yourself, is knowledge. Just get the knowledge, get the information. There's lots of people doing the same work as I do. You know, we are many people that are actually trying to contribute. And I think if you want to empower yourself, it's getting that knowledge. There's lots of people. Mine is, you know, it's in my humble position. I try to give some input, but that is very simple. And what I'd like to do is really like what I'm doing is not rocket science. You can go out there and you can see. In the case of Greenland, just look at the funding. And the way I did, I will give you just a few examples, but the way I did with the Greenland was basically saying, okay, there must be some meddling. So that's the thought process. There must be some meddling. How did it do? I checked Joe Soros, I checked those NGOs, and then I was like, oh, well, USAID, maybe through that. And then you see the links. And then you see this picture, Samantha Power meeting with the president of Greenland. And that is going very much against the sovereignty of Denmark, because even though it's an autonomous region, but why are you bypassing Denmark and actually pouring money directly into Greenland? And that's how you slowly can get to the conclusion of saying, well, you know, the US has been trying to plant the seeds for controlling Greenland. So what Trump is doing, it's a long-term plan. Anyway, I want to thank you all. So have a nice evening, and always keep yourself informed. And if you want to share this page, I'll try to do this more. And don't hesitate to give me some input, how you'd like, you know, the frequency of the show, what you like, what you don't like. I'll try to adapt, and it's always useful. And I like to have this conversation with you guys. Bye for now.